Hello, everyone, and welcome to Capes, Cowls and Masks, the show where we uncover the world of soups and science fiction. I'm your host, Jake Hart. I'm a podcaster, a sound designer, and a writer for Fresh Take Hub. And as always, I'm joined by my fellow co-host.
Hi there, everyone. It's Tom Gapper, your beloved comic book shogun, who is incredibly ill right now, but will power through this podcast anyway because we got some very juicy news for you this week. Very juicy.
Very juicy indeed. Unfortunately, Dave is not with us this week. He's just a bit tired today after a long day at work, so it's just going to be us manning the fort today. And as Tom said, boy, do we have some juicy stuff to talk about. But Tom, you're ill. I'm stressed. What a week this has been for me. Like you know, everybody says like moving house is one of the most stressful things you can do. Honestly, it absolutely is. I have just been bored every day, like working my day job and then like in the evenings preparing the new house, packing, painting, all this fucking shit. I'm just tired, man. I'm just so tired. I'm not quite done yet, but we're nearly there. I'm in the new studio recording this first podcast in the new studio, so I'm excited. But because I've been so busy doing all of that, I haven't really had a chance to watch anything or really read anything. So I go to you, Tom. What have you been up to this past week?
Well, oh, good Lord. I mean, in the past, 2 weeks, I've moved, twice, essentially. So I feel your pain right now. I am in my new house, which is actually my house now. I pay rent and everything. I've got everything all set up nice. Not using that house at the moment, though, because I've still yet to pick up a new TV and or monitor. In terms of reading, I've not actually been reading much in the way of comics. I've just been... I've basically been reading this... It's called The Stolen Throne. It's set in the Dragon Age universe, and I've just been basically just reading that because I've decided I'm going to read all the Dragon Age stuff before I do my next playthrough, even though I've just finished one, because I'm obsessed with that series. So that's basically what I've been up to. That and fighting this awful cold. I did have a nice night out on Friday night, but I imagine that's where the cold came from. So now I'm looking back on it and I'm like... But it was emo night at Sin City in Swansea, so I mean, I had to go represent, you know. Yeah, it was good.
That takes me back to the early noughties, man.
Mate, let me tell you, it was epic. When Ignorance by Paramore came on, the whole room was just like, whoa. It was crazy,
man.
They even threw in some System of a Down, and I was like, technically not emo, but you know, it's from this. I'll forgive it because it's System of a Down, you know. So yeah, very good night. Definitely feeling it now, though, especially with this cold. But yeah, so hopefully now that I am properly settled, maybe by the time we do the podcast next week, I'll have a whole list of things I've read and watched. And maybe one of those things I've watched will be Y: The Last Man, finally.
Fine. Yes, I'm with you there, bro. I think there's the first 3 episodes are out, and by the time this podcast comes out, the 4th episode will be out. So I've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, it'll be fine though, because that's basically what happened with me in Invincible. Was I didn't actually watch until the 4th episode dropped after the first 3 dropped at once. I think the same happened with season 2 of The Boys. I just waited until there was 4 episodes out. So actually, my moving schedule has kept me within this usual ritual I have with these streaming shows. So yeah, so that's something.
I haven't even managed to catch What If as well, the last 2 episodes. So that. A lot to catch up on. But I will say one thing I did manage to watch, and I haven't watched all of them yet, but I know you have, Tom, and that is Star Wars Visions. That's the new series of anime shorts that came out on Disney Plus from Lucasfilm. We've sort of spoken about it before. You've got mixed feelings. You love some of them you're unsure on. I'm sort of the same. I don't hate any of them, but I'm a bit like, okay, some of them I can sort of leave. But in terms of what Lucasfilm are doing here, with this sort of new idea of just telling these interesting stories that don't fit into canon, and I'm so happy of that, because if you sort of fit these into canon, they couldn't do half of the stuff they're doing on this show. It's absolutely bonkers, some of the episodes, and I'm just like, this is anime loud and proud. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. That's the one thing I have catched.
Yeah, no, I've as you said, I found it a bit of a mixed bag. I do think that there were some episodes, I think the Ninth Jedi especially, where I was watching and thinking, no, you could put this as like maybe an Old Republic story, possibly, and it could still maybe work, or maybe slightly after the Old Republic, or I don't know. There was like part of me was even thinking like what they could have gone down the route of is maybe, this is maybe a stupid idea that maybe just me is thinking of, but if they went down the route of calling it maybe Star Wars Legends or something like that, and basically had it so like these stories, they could potentially be canon, but because so much time has passed from them, maybe like it's just that some of the facts have been mixed up, so they seem like more big and epic than they maybe actually were. But then you get episodes like episode 2. You know what? I'm just like
Tatooine Rhapsody, baby.
I had some issues with that episode, but I won't go into. But yeah, I think overall though I did enjoy it, and I did appreciate that at least, as you said, because it wasn't canon, they weren't bound to anything. They could go batshit insane, and they did. So I can appreciate it. Also, just like finding out that in the Twins episode, the twins were played by Neil Patrick Harris and Alison Brie blew my freaking mind. I was just like, what? Amazing.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I know you don't like the episode, but shout out to Tamara Morrison for being Boba Fett in that episode.
I couldn't believe Boba Fett. Like, yeah, as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, Tamara, man, what are you doing here? It was nice. It was nice hearing him.
I
but
can
also
imagine, like he was like shooting Book of Boba Fett, and they were like, "Yo, Tem, can you just pop over to the sound booth and just say these lines?"
Yeah. He was probably like, I don't know what this is for, but yeah, whatever.
Why the hell not? Am I getting paid? Yes. Sure.
I'd be happy to see them maybe do a season 2 of it, to be honest.
They're talking about it. Well, the producers say that they they'd love to do one. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I am really intrigued because obviously we both loved the first episode, The Duel. And there is a novel coming out next month based on the Ronin character. So I'm definitely going to be picking that up because I loved that episode. It was literally if Kurosawa, what if he made Star Wars? And that's what you get.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I have no complaints about that first episode. And I think it was based on that episode alone that I forged past episode 2 and was just like, it's fine, it'll pick up again. And it did pick up
it
again.
Did, but the thing is, the problem I thought is that first episode set such a high bar.
Yeah.
Didn't it? And it was like, I still think The Elder comes close to that. Maybe not quite as good, but I really did enjoy that one.
That is also one that could technically work in canon because there's a line in there where like they're talking about could it be a Sith, and the Padawan says, but the Sith haven't been seen in several hundred years. Whereas by the time Phantom Menace, it's the Sith haven't been seen in a millennia. So you could, if you wanted to, slip that in, but it's not important. That can just be like a headcanon you have. Like I don't think like anyone at Star Wars needs to rush in and go like, okay, we're making this official now. But if you want to pretend it's canon, I think I'm gonna, because like I really did like it, and I think it fits in the Star Wars universe quite nicely.
Well, here's to hoping they do more. I'm definitely interested to see if they do any more. So right, let's get into the news then. All the juicy stuff coming.
Tear up page 1, run that photo instead.
Headline?
Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photos.
Right, so this first story. Now we don't often talk about this on this show, but it is sci-fi, and it is a very important sci-fi property to me and also Dave's heart, and that is Russell T Davies is returning as Doctor Who showrunner. So Russell T Davies was the showrunner who guided the original revival of Christopher Eccleston in 2005 and is now returning to oversee the show's next phase, starting with the 60th anniversary special and going into at least the season beyond that. This is following the departure of current showrunner Chris Chibnall. Now, initially, as Dave will know, I was a little skeptical about this news, but over the past few days I've been thinking about it a bit more and I'm actually like on board with this. I think it's fair to say, regardless of what you thought of Chris Chibnall's era, it's been a bit of a low point in the series since the revival happened. The ratings aren't great. People aren't clicking with the show as much. It doesn't seem like the BBC have been advertising it as much, focusing more on like their big Finnish products that have David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston in them. So it was definitely fair to say the Doctor Who was on a little bit of a death spiral. And whilst I was initially thinking that Russell T Davies returning was a step backwards, I'm actually looking at this as like this could get the show back on track, back to its roots, back to why people love the show. I'm already seeing so many comments on Facebook from people saying that they're going to pick up the show again. Mind you, I can't help but think maybe some of those people only dropped off the show because they got a female doctor, but that's a conversation for another time. So yeah, it's exciting news. I don't think we have anything official yet on Jodie Whittaker's position. Like, the rumors were that she was going to be leaving with Chibnall, but I don't think they fully announced that yet. I would be happy to see Russell write for her for maybe a season, maybe before transitioning into a new showrunner and a new doctor to get things going again. But yeah, I think all in all, exciting time to be a Doctor Who fan. But Jake, I know you're not really as big a Doctor Who fan as, say, me or Dave, but does this news do anything for you? Are you intrigued at all?
I mean, I'm not a Doctor Who fan. It's putting it lightly. I've never seen a single episode.
That is shocking.
Of Doctor Who. Can you believe that? Honestly, not a single one.
But it's been going since the 60s, man.
I know, right? It's one of those things where because I didn't grow up with it, didn't watch it as a kid. It wasn't on TV, where I had TV and stuff, the channels I was watching. So yeah, it just never caught on to me. I just never got into that sort of fandom of it. But I do understand the premise and what it's all about and stuff like that, just from pop culture in general. And I understand the fan base is, like any fan base, very passionate about what goes on behind the scenes within Doctor Who. So, this news, I was thinking two things as a non-Doctor Who fan. I was thinking this could go two ways. Either the BBC are desperate and are going, oh, maybe, they're following the trend of Hollywood of like, let's rely on nostalgia. Let's bring back the guy that, had that really great run with Tennant and stuff like that. The fans will love that, they'll love the old stuff. Or is this more of a saying of like, I'm coming back because I understand the characters, but I'm not going to do what I did before. I'm going to try something new. That's for me. Again, I'm not a fan, but as any fan of any property, you would want that would be the right attitude to have. Like, okay, we're familiar with this dude. He's shown he knows what he's talking about when it comes to Doctor Who, but let's do something different with it. So that's all really I can say. I mean, I'm happy for Doctor Who fans who are excited about this. And, I do think people need to give Jodie Whittaker more of a chance as well. And I like your idea if they do segue with her into Russell T. Davis's beginning. Like they can do like one season with her and then transition into the new Doctor. I think we at least owe her that. Do you know what I mean? So that's really all I have to say. I'm sorry, I'm just never seen an episode of Doctor Who.
That's crazy, but also completely understandable. Yeah, I'm really kind of hoping that they do keep Jodie around for at least one season with Russell, because I really think he'd be able to do her Doctor justice. Because as much as I have been a fan of Jodie's Doctor, and I know for a fact that she is an incredibly talented actress, there have been some parts where it has been lacking, but I do think that has been down to the writing more than her, more than anything. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. It does. Part of me can't help but think it is the BBC just going like, right, the show is dying. It kind of has always been one of our main money makers, so we kind of need to save it. What do we do? Let's get back the guy who made it popular in the first place. I'm also excited at the prospect that maybe Stephen Moffat might come back to write like a guest episode with Russell. Maybe that would be quite nice. But mostly just looking forward to see what Russell can do with the 60th anniversary, because I'm hoping for a multi-Doctor story. David Tennant is almost guaranteed to come back for that. There's been reports that he's recently shaved his beard and has been spotted close to where Doctor Who tends to film. But also, if we could get Capaldi and Matt Smith back, mostly Capaldi, please give me more Capaldi, because I loved him as the Doctor so much. Yeah, I think it is just an exciting time to be a Doctor Who fan. And maybe, because it is coming up to the 60th, maybe it's time that Jake goes, okay, maybe I will watch a episode. I mean, there's plenty out there. There's
When's the is it next year, the 60th?
Yeah, it'll be November 23rd, 2023.
2023, okay.
Yeah. So
you know what? I'll give you that, Tom. In 2023, I'll start watching Doctor Who. Not all, maybe not the 60s stuff. Maybe like from like the
I
rebirth
think
thing.
the revival is because what I loved about Russell T when he did the revival was he did it almost like it was essentially like a reboot. Well, it was a reboot for the show. And whilst he still honored like the old canon and basically said like, yeah, no, all that show is still canon. When he was introducing aspects from that into this revival, he did it in a way that like it made the audience who have maybe never heard of these characters before or even seen them like understand why they're a big deal. Sometimes I thought Moffat struggled with that in his era, and he just felt that like people he basically trusted the audience, I think, a bit too much to just know all these various aspects from like the old canon. So I it's definitely exciting because I'm hoping he can bring that back into the new series, because it's been a problem with Chibnall as well, just relying on the fact that people are going to know all these like obscure references. But yeah, definitely a good time to become a Doctor Who fan, I think, and can't wait to see where this goes.
Well, I'm sure we'll discuss it when we have some more news on the development. So, all right, let's get into our next story, and that comes from DC and HBO Max. HBO Max has announced they are doing a 3-part documentary series celebrating the history and legacy of DC. The series is going to be directed and produced by Academy Award and Emmy-nominated director, producer, and showrunner Leslie Iwerks, who has famously done the Pixar Story documentary and the Imagineering Story documentary series on Disney+. So the series is going to take a look at the legacy of DC and the influence in pop culture, allowing fans to get a deeper look into the characters that the company has produced over the years, as well as a look at the company's origins and evolution into the cultural powerhouse. So this is what publisher and chief creative officer Jim Lee had to say. We all love Jim Lee. DC has a rich legacy of over 80 years of iconic storytelling, from the introduction of the genre-defining superhero Superman in 1938 to the amazing movies, TV shows, cartoons, games, and comics which have been synonymous with superheroism for generations thereafter. We are so excited to dive into this history and bring fans along this amazing journey. Now, I really like the sound of this. As a DC fan, I've always been primarily more DC than Marvel, even though I like both. Don't shoot me, people. I'm just a sucker for any sort of behind-the-scenes, documentary-style stuff about the stuff that I love. And if they're going to go like this 3-episode docu-series, it seems like they're maybe going to be a weighty, like 60 minutes each episode sort of thing. Really go explore deep into the nooks and crannies of the origins and how this company works and their influence on popular culture. I'm definitely excited to see that and hear from all the creators and people involved in DC. However, because it's DC, Warner Brothers, and HBO Max produced, there might be like this coat of like, look how awesome everything is. And they might just avoid some of the nasty stuff that they've, that they have done in the past.
Siegel, Schuster, what?
Yes, we can touch upon that later in our later story.
So. We will be, Jake. We will be.
So, yes, but at the same time, it is still very exciting to hear about the legacy and history of this amazing publisher and company, really. So, Tom, what do you make of this news, and are you excited to watch it?
I'm definitely excited to watch it. I mean, I love anything that dives deep into the world of comic books, and I think with DC it definitely makes a lot of sense to do it, because I mean, I think if I had to choose, I mean, I love both companies so much, but if I had to choose, I would say I'm more of a Marvel guy, just because I think more of my favorite characters in comics are from Marvel. I've started on Marvel and like read a big chunk of it before going to DC, but saying that, DC simply has just more iconic characters, and this is definitely true before the MCU happens. There was a lot of Marvel characters which maybe now are like quite famous, that just back then weren't well known to everyone, whereas DC, everyone knows who Superman and Batman are, and even Wonder Woman as well. Like, everyone knows who those three are. I mean, loads of people used to make him the butt of the jokes, but everyone knows who Aquaman is. Hell, I'd even argue that like more people know who Martian Manhunter is than who knew who Vision was before he became part of the MCU. I'd make that argument personally. they just, I don't know what it was in those early days of DC Comics, but they just knew how to make characters that would just stick in your mind, and which, I mean, the only thing I can suggest is people read Super Gods by Grant Morrison. It's a really lovely book that basically dives into that history of comics and like how DC created these characters, and he like dives deep into the comics themselves, like taking out bits of dialogue from there, and he kind of explains why these characters were so incredible. So it'll actually be nice to basically read that alongside this series, I think, because obviously this is going to dive more into sort of a broader look at DC and how they develop the characters and just the company throughout the history. But yeah, it's definitely going to be super interesting. I'm already thinking of like all the people they'll get to like interview for it, all the various comic book writers. Like they gotta get Marv Wolfman in there. They gotta have an entire section of that documentary dedicated to
Crisis.
Yes, just the concept of the Crisis, and a big chunk devoted to Crisis on Infinite Earths, because that was a landmark comic in so many ways. And yeah, it's just, I'm very excited for this, and I'm glad Jim Lee is excited for it. I'm hoping Jim Lee is going to be in it because, as you said, everyone loves Jim Lee. I always love hearing what he has to say.
He's that one guy at DC that everyone just loves, isn't it? You know, everyone's had their issues with Jeff Johns and Dan Didio and all that sort of stuff, but Jim Lee is just that guy, isn't he? That is like, it's Jim Lee. Like,
he's got such an infectious smile.
He is, and he's so talented. Honestly.
Oh, fantastic artist. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that X-Men #1 cover is like so valued.
I would say arguably redefined the look of Batman.
Yeah, no, I'd give you that. I'd definitely give you that. But yeah, it's just listening to, reading like what he had to say about just like DC has a rich legacy of over 80 years of iconic storytelling. It's just like, yes, I want to see a documentary on all this. And I do have the same concern as you, that it's going to be very much like, look how great this is, look how fantastic all these things are. Well, the thing is, there was a lot of shit that DC went through, that DC put people through in order to become the successful company it was. And I don't think they should shy away from that, because,
especially Bill Finger.
Oh, I tell you what, right? If they gloss over the whole Bob Kane, Bill Finger thing, I'm going to be very annoyed. I'm going to be very, very annoyed. Well, interestingly, I will say that at least like Bob Kane's original design for Batman does look kind of cool, but obviously just like so different to what I remember looking at it going like, I mean, yeah, it's more
of a Robin look, really.
It is actually.
It's got the domino mask and the red suit.
And he's got blonde hair in it as well, if I recall.
I shall become a blonde bat.
Yes.
But yeah, Leslie, it works as well that she's doing this. Like I said, have you seen the Pixar story or the Imagineering story?
I have not, actually.
I highly recommend both of those. The Pixar story is documentary you can watch it on Disney Plus, and the Imagineering story is also a docu-series, which is, talks about all the Imagineers at Disneyland and how they created Disneyland and all the rides and stuff like that. It's really, really well done. So after hearing that the person behind those documentaries is doing this, I'm like, okay, they're putting some money into this. They're getting some really good talent. And also she is Academy Award and Emmy nominated as well. So that says something.
Oh, there we go. It's definitely going to be a quality documentary then. So yeah, very much looking forward to that.
Absolutely. So as we said, that's going to be on HBO Max. No date yet. And obviously we'll keep you posted when we can watch it over here in the UK. The never-ending story of HBO Max content over here.
Damn you, Sky.
What have we got next, Tom?
What have we got next? So we've got The Sandman. So Netflix has revealed this first footage from the long-awaited adaptation of Neil Gaiman's magnum opus in a special first look video at Netflix's TUDUM event. Tudum. Ah, I see. That's clever. Neil Gaiman, along with stars Tom Sturridge, who plays Dream, and Kirby Howell-Baptiste, who plays Death, presented a glimpse of what fans can expect from the show. They also teased the new Sandman social pages where you can see first look character posters. Now, the clip was outstanding. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a sucker for Charles Dance anyway, but seeing him in a Sandman related thing, and then actually getting to see Tom Sturridge's dream for the first time, I got chills, man. I got some serious chills. And then all the character posters as well look fantastic. I want them all on my wall. I'm so excited for this show. I mean, what did you think of the footage and the character posters, but mostly the footage, and just what do you think about Sandman in general that you haven't already told us?
We spoke up top of the show about our emo night, and we had our emo phase. This is just taking me back to my goth phase, where the Sandman, as I mentioned numerous times on the show before, it's arguably one of the finest comics ever written. Definitely in like my top 5 of best comics I've ever read anyway. It's just incredible, the mixture of fantasy and the way Neil Gaiman tells the story. It's just storytelling at its absolute finest, with fantastic artwork throughout many different artists. It's just incredible. It is, as I put in the title, it is Neil Gaiman's magnum opus, I think. I think it's his finest piece of work and some of the finest comics out there. Now, watching this first footage, I just got goth chills, because it just reminded me of when I first cracked open that first issue and reading that, seeing the sequence where these monks are, doing the spell and throwing all the different stuff in, and then they capture Dream. And then seeing that mask with the long snout and then the amulet, my God, this looks fucking insane. This looks so comic accurate. I'm so happy that they're oh my God, they're getting it. This is actually what the comic looks like. Having Neil Gaiman on board definitely helps, I can imagine. And yeah, like you, Tom Sturridge's Dream just looks the part, doesn't he? We haven't heard him speak yet. I'm so excited to hear that voice and what he's going to sound like. But yeah, I'm just so excited. I'm just I just want to see more. I just want to see this whole episode now. Give me this show. I'm just so for it. I love we reviewed a couple of weeks back, or even a couple of months back, that behind the scenes video that they released. Where they showed the sanctuary and all the different moving parts, and you can see that in the actual final footage. You can see that the practicality got into it, the amount of work of set design, production design, and even the visual effects when all that stuff was in the middle doing all that crazy shit. I was like, man, that looks insane. This looks movie level CGI. They've always wanted to make Sandman a movie. Well, this is the next best thing in TV nowadays. It just looks insane. I can't wait for it. And like you, those posters look amazing. I love that they gave them the character posters and then the poster of the trinket that each of one of them has. You know what I mean? That signifies what power they have and stuff like that. So I'm so excited. It's taking me back to my goth teen days. I just want to spike up my hair, paint my face white, and just rock out to lots of goth music while watching this. But yeah, very, very excited.
Yeah, I'm definitely really excited for how, like you said, I think you summed it up perfectly. It does just look like movie quality, and just the set pieces were all amazing. The effects were amazing. Charles Dance was exquisite. And yet it's just, I do feel this makes sense why Neil Gaiman has held off so long on adaptations of this. If by the time he actually gets to, and it's comic accurate so far based off this one clip. I imagine there'll be, the occasional change here or there. But I know you said that they always wanted to do Sandman as a movie. I honestly always thought it would work better as a TV show just because of the depth of the story and just how rich it is.
Yeah, but the thing is, back in those days, TV couldn't do that TV.
Which is why I think it's so fantastic the TV is now at a level where it can do this, and it can have this huge, massive, amazing storytelling. See, it's very, very exciting. I can't wait, as well as you said, to hear Dream speak. Because I don't know about you, but I've always had very specific voices in mind for these characters, and because I do sometimes get disappointed when I hear a character in some adaptation, and I'm just you're not at all how I envisioned you sounding, to be honest. And sometimes it can be. Sometimes it's just a little thing you get over, but sometimes it ends up leading to the character being different to how you always thought them. So then it's
I will say that is on us though. That.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. So I'm sure though, because there's Neil Gaiman doing it, even if Dream or Death or anyone sounds different to how I imagined them or delivers the lines different to how I imagined it, if it's Neil Gaiman doing it, I know I'm probably going to be there going, no, that's better. That's better. I like that. I like that. And yeah, I'm probably going to start reading the series again soon, just because
I was just about to say that.
It's been so long, and I feel like I want to in preparation for this, because it is just one of the greatest comics ever written, and I implore people to pick it up. Like, even if you're waiting to watch the show and then pick up the comics, because it'll be a whole different experience, and then you'll get into comic books, and then we'll have you.
Read it, if only for the issue, The Night of 1,000 Cats. I'll leave it there, people. That's but no, I will actually say I have read it recently. I read it. It was one of my big read-throughs during the first lockdown back in 2020, where, when I was like, okay, what am I going to do to occupy my time? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to read Sandman again, because I love that series. So it's pretty fresh in my mind. But like you, after seeing this footage, I'm like, I just want to read it again and see like what I've just seen on the screen, but in the books again. And just, So yeah, I'm so excited. And I think it's probably my most anticipated TV show coming out. I honestly don't think there is another one that I'm more excited for.
I am probably inclined to agree with you. I'm just trying to think if there are any that I'm very excited for, but nothing compares to Sandman, I don't think. I mean, maybe Hawkeye if a certain fat guy shows up. But, that's just rumors at the moment.
Let's not go down there.
Yeah, but Sandman I'm definitely just so ready for, and it'll have been worth the wait, I think.
Definitely. I think we're going to get it next year by the looks of it. They haven't announced the date yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be next year.
Oh yeah, probably maybe. I don't know where you'd want to put it, to be honest. Obviously I want it early as possible, but possible summer release maybe. I don't know.
Maybe I would even say maybe early spring.
That would be ideal, to be honest. That'd be ideal.
As soon as possible, please, Netflix.
Yes.
You're doing the Lord's work, as Kevin Smith would say.
Yes.
Right, so that's it. That's the Sandman. We're just going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our main story. And this is the one we've been saying. It's a big, juicy one.
Those are the facts. Based on these, and these alone, the prosecution has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client was not acting solely in self-defense. And those, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are the facts. My client, based purely on the sanctity of the law, which we've all sworn an oath to uphold, must be acquitted of these charges. Now, beyond that, beyond these walls, he may well face a judgment of his own making.
All right, and we're back, and we're here for the main big story. And it looks like Marvel has found itself tied up in some legal issues, and not the kind Daredevil can sort out. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Marvel, the company, is suing several heirs of some of its iconic writers and artists in order to maintain copyright of multiple Avengers characters, including Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Widow, Falcon, Hawkeye, and more. The complaints center around the legal issue of copyright termination, or the idea that Marvel could lose the rights to recreate and continue using some of their most iconic characters. Bear with me here, people, because I want to get this right, because this might, sound like a lot of law talk, but it is quite important. So I will go as detailed as possible. So this lawsuit comes after the administrators of Steve Ditko's estate filed a notice of termination on the character of Spider-Man, who had been created by the artist as a piece for hire in 1962. Other termination notices have also been filed, and if Marvel does not succeed in preventing termination for any or all of these characters, they will begin to lose copyrights starting in June 2023. This is absolutely nuts. So the complaints have been filed against the heirs of late comic book icon Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Gene Colan, as well as Black Widow creator Don Rico, who have all filed claims for copyright termination. As part of the claims, these original authors or their heirs can seek the termination of copyright or the exclusive right to make copies of a work granted to their characters that they were created as, quote, works for hire for larger publishers after waiting a certain number of years. Lawsuits have been filed against Larry Lieber, Don Heck, Patrick Ditko, Rico, Keith Delweiler. Disney will co-own the rights if these cases are ruled in favor of the plaintiffs rather than the possessing sole ownership. The studio would also have to share any profits involved. So let's just stop there. There's a lot of legal talk going on here. I know it might be difficult for you to get your brain around this. I'm also still trying to get my brain around this. But basically, Marvel could lose the rights to their very own characters, which is just absolutely insane just to think about that very concept. I'm trying to recover from this, so I'm going to let you start, Tom. What do you make of this?
Right. Well, I mean, this is going to sound like a brag initially, but I really don't mean it as a brag. I'm meaning this to set up another point. But like, I do have a law degree, and I did do quite well in my media law section in my second year. So yeah, it is pretty nuts. It is pretty nuts to think that like Marvel could lose these characters. I don't think, like, honestly, I think the worst case scenario out of all this is that these various like family estates get some nice payoffs, and maybe like all future comics or things that have these characters in will have to be prefaced with something like by special arrangement with the Ditko estate or the Lee estate or something like that, much like DC have to do with Superman now after the agreement made with Siegel and Schuster, who I coughed about before. So, and what I can't help take from this is that like this is just a case of Marvel's like dug its own grave. How often recently as well have we heard of creators like being a bit annoyed that they're not getting their fair share? Like Ed Brubaker came out recently and said about Winter Soldiers. Jim Starlin has always been a long vocal critic about Marvel because of this. Like he's barely got anything out of Thanos becoming like the main big bad endgame boss.
Hey, you got a cameo.
True, he got a cameo. But I do think it's just a case of if Marvel and DC were paying their writers their fair share for the characters they created, shit like this wouldn't be happening. Or even if it did, it would probably be because like you know, you'd be able to look at it and go, oh, well, they're being unreasonable because at least Marvel and DC are being fair. But they historically have not been. I go to Siegel and Schuster. You might think the creators of Superman enjoyed rich, long, happy lives. You would be mistaken. They were rinsed by DC for almost everything, and it took like years and years and years of court cases and legal proceedings before they finally got a settlement out of it. And now, as I said, DC always have to put by special arrangement with the Siegel and Schuster estates on their Superman comics because of that, which is what I think may end up happening here. But I think I can see this. I can see a big payout happening. I think I wouldn't bet money on I would bet money on Marvel maybe coming out of this with still sole possession of everything. But if that happens, it's going to cost them a lot of dollar to do so. But I think there's just an equal chance of this ending up with the rights being shared. Now, I don't think it's going to result in Marvel not being able to use the characters. Because like honestly, what I'm getting from like the various like family members who are filing these lawsuits, they just want, you know, the fair share of the work that their families created, which I don't think is too much of an ask. Give them a share of the profits. What is it? What is it to Marvel anyway? What is it to Disney? I mean, Marvel is just one small part of what gives Disney its money. They have Star Wars. They have everything else. They're just slowly like getting everything. So like honestly, I'm not really on Marvel on this one. I am with the families of Ditko and Stan Lee and Gene Colan and Don Rico. They need their fair share. Creators everywhere need their fair share. I do get the idea of you create this character whilst working for us, so therefore we own the character. But even if, like, you know, I can understand that is the logic there, should that really be the logic there? Or should it not be, you created this character for us, so you get a nice share of the profits? I get Marvel need to make their bottom line. I get that they may need to demand a higher share of the profits just to keep the lights going, to get more creators creating more characters to widen the universe. But so I feel like they need to start just going, right, we'll give everyone their fair share. And you might start to see then after this more lawsuits being filed and more creators like demanding an equal share of like proceedings. Maybe that'll see a positive, because I think it's something the comics industry needs. If the creators know that they're going to get a fair share for their characters, you'll start seeing the industry boom again. This is why so many writers have been leaving the big two recently to go to places like Image or Substack, which is the new thing. It's because they know they're getting their fair share of the money for the stories and characters they're creating.
Well, and full ownership.
And full ownership as well. So, I don't know. It is a very complicated case. I can see where Marvel are coming from in wanting to like retain sole possession over the rights, but I don't think it's the right thing, and I do think that they need to make some special arrangement with these states, because otherwise it's not really a good look for them. It's really not, because already I'm seeing so many people like I mean, this is like on the extreme end of the spectrum, but I've even seen one or two people commenting that like this could like spark the death spiral for the MCU as we know it, just based on like how bad publicity Marvel and Disney could get out of this. I think that's a bit of an extreme way things could go, but I can see the logic there. If they play their cards wrong here, it could do a lot of damage for them.
Yes, like you, I'm with the creators on this one, but that's because I've just always been very creator driven, and you know, I believe that creators, no matter what company you're working for, you should still have some ownership of your creations that you've created, the characters and stuff like that. So yes, you're working for a larger company and that it's worked for hire, and if you're working on hero or characters that have already been worked on, then sure, you have a different arrangement. If you're creating brand new characters, that is your IP. Do you know what I mean? So I'm with the you know, the heirs of this one. I don't think it's too much to ask for them to say, hey, look, it's been 70 years now, 75 years since Marvel have been around, or something like that. Probably even earlier if you go back to like the World War II, before they were known as Marvel. And, you know, I understand at the time when these contracts were made and how the system worked then. Granted, it wasn't great then. It's not great now. But times were much different then. The way money worked was different. The economy was different. The, you know, comics, the industry, how that all worked was just very, very different. Now, Marvel are this huge conglomerate that is known globally. They were known globally before, but it's so different now that it is in every corner, and every average Joe now would, if you said, oh, do you know the Marvel films? They will say yes. They might not know the comics or anything, but they know the films just because of what the impact's done. So, and under the umbrella of Disney, they've got so much money now. It literally is what arguably Disney's most profitable franchise or IP that they've got right now. So I do not think it's too much for us, for the creators just say, hey, look, we're not asking for loads. We just want our fair share. And this just reminds me of what you mentioned of when Ed Brubaker was on the Kevin Smith podcast, and he laid it out on Marvel. He was not shy about his thoughts. He was like, look, I'm not asking for a lot of money here. I'm just saying, look, give me a little piece. You know, I created that character. And all you give me is a cameo. He said that he loved the cameo. He loved working with the people involved and all that. He was very grateful, but he was like, there's something else here that needs to be addressed. And I think this is going to follow suit. If Marvel don't sort this out, that I think they're going to see a lot more people saying, hey, man, you know, we need to give our fair share. And I think they should all come together and talk this through, because Marvel suing them, I think, like you said, is a very bad look. It just shows Marvel as this faceless organization that doesn't care about its original creators or its people or stuff like that. It feels very corporate. And I'm just like, and I know that's not the case at Marvel. I know that's not the case, but the image it's portraying is like, oh, you want more money out of us? Well, we're going to sue you because you filed this termination thing. It just sounds very petty in my opinion. And I'm just like, you've got enough money to pay these people. They've created the work. If it wasn't for these people, or I should say their parents, you would not have a company to be running and making all this billions of dollars right now. I'm a bit salty about this with Marvel, to be honest. I think it's kind of a shitty move from them to do this. It doesn't really cost a lot to pay these people what they're due. And in the words of Mordo, the bill comes due, always. And they will have to pay up at some point. They're either going to pay up by giving them the money that they deserve, or they're going to pay up by losing the rights to these characters. And then fucking hell, imagine like Sony or Warner Brothers or any of these other studios going, all right then, let's have a go at the Hulk. Let's have a go at Spider-Man.
It could happen. It could happen. I mean, what I will say about like Marvel suing them, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the American legal system, and the concept of suing over there is way different to how it works over here or how we operate.
Well, they do it all willy-nilly over there.
They do. They'll sue over anything. And because of that, what I think it's less like Marvel like being dicks about it. I mean, admittedly, it still looks like that, but I think it's more just like a bit of a tactic on their part of going like, right, worst case scenario here is that we could lose control of all these characters. So if we put this counter sue in, saying that we want sole control, then we can work out a middle ground, which still means, they're not in trouble of losing these characters, but the estate gets like their fair share. That's what I'm choosing to look at it at right now. But admittedly, it is still like not a great look that it was almost like instantly Marvel like, no, we're suing for sole control. So I mean, it gets a bit difficult when there's legal proceedings involved, but a bit of transparency maybe from Marvel on this wouldn't go amiss. Admittedly, they can't say much right now because of the fact they are in these legal proceedings, so you're not really supposed to talk about them. But I think if they could maybe put out some statement that maybe just kind of puts across what the position on it is, and maybe it is along the lines of giving them their fair share, but just making sure they don't lose the characters, I think it could go a long way. But as I said, because there's legal proceedings involved, it could be that they literally can't say anything. So I don't know, because it's just Marvel especially, DC as well, but Marvel especially do have a bit of a shitty history. They've pulled a lot of shit in the past, whether it's against writers or whether it's basically trying to argue that mutant action figures weren't actually human, so that they could pay lower tax rates on importing them because non-human action figures have a lower import tariff than human tariffs. And when, you might think like, oh, that's nothing. But when you think about the whole point of the X-Men comics, for then Marvel to come out unabashedly and just go, yeah, mutants aren't human. But as I say, that's a bit of a small thing in comparison to some of the other shit they've pulled. Stan Lee himself definitely pulled some shit.
Poor Jack Kirby, man.
Kirby definitely felt the effects. And that's because, like I said, if Marvel play their cards wrong here, we're already seeing some writers go to Substack or Image to focus on creator-owned projects. You're going to start seeing more if they think to themselves, right, so if we even like ask for our fair share, we're just going to get shut down straight away. It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
But this is what I mean. But look at all these independents, and primarily Image, because Image is this weird company it's still an indie publisher, but it's so huge at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It has some of the best stories ever written in comics. It has some of the best writers and artists involved at the minute. And, they're raking in their money, making great content, and the creators are, owning all the stuff that they create. So everyone seems happy at Image, and that's why you said all these people are leaving the big two now to join these smaller companies like Image, Boom,
Substack, I was going to say Boom, because the thing with Boom as well is like, I think their whole model as well is that, for example, with the Grant Morrison comic Proctor Valley Road, their idea there was that like they would make this comic, maybe it would then become like a TV show, and I think they've been applying that to like most of their comics. Is that eventually they want them to like they've got some partnership with ABC or something. But it would just be another case of creators going there. They know that if any of their works do actually get made into live action form, they're going to get their fair share out of it, and it's a very enticing prospect when like Marvel and DC are still going no. There's only so much you can get out of writers wanting to write for these characters, because obviously most writers who get into comics, they're going to have like that one character in Marvel or DC that they want to write for, they want to do things for. But if they think to themselves, well, it's not really going to be worth it because I'm not going to get fuck all out of it, it can only go so far.
I think when it comes to that, like I mentioned a bit earlier, if you're doing a character that's obviously already been created, I think that's more doing it for the love. Because I think that's not your character. That especially if you're doing Batman or Superman or Spider-Man, those characters are beyond anyone. They're just larger than life characters. So
yeah, true, but you can like introduce like new characters within those series, like Bendis did when he just completely rewrote the Death of Krypton with
yeah, but he also gave us Miles.
He did also give us Miles. I will say like Bendis is definitely a good example. You think of all the characters he's created, like Jessica Jones, Miles, various others. I think he did the Scarlet series as well. He had that other creator owns thing, Powers, which got a PlayStation Network like live action adaptation.
Yeah,
which was weird.
It was weird, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was very weird, and I watched it, and it was weird. It was very cheaply done, but it had the guy from District 9 in it.
I never watched it. I just saw the trailer. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Oh yeah, Eddie Izzard was the villain in the first season as well.
What the?
And then Michael Madsen in the second.
What?
It's just so weird. But yeah, just going back to this, it's... Yeah, I think Marvel really needs to kind of maybe sit down, get everyone together and just be like, right, how do we play this? What's really the best way to play this going forwards? Because I don't think it's trying really hard to go for sole ownership, because that's just not going to look good on them.
No, not going to look good at all. But we'll see. I mean, this is going to be a while. Cases like this, they take absolute years. And like I said, we probably won't hear anything till probably earliest 2023. So.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if like we get more lawsuits happening in the meantime. Like, yeah, I can imagine it spilling over to DC at some point, because like this will have gotten some writers' attention or some family estate's attention, and they'll think, right, maybe. I mean, it does come down to like the various windows. Like the reason like that the estates were making these claims now is because like they have a window open from I think like 2017 to 2023 due to the time scales of the copyrights where they can like make these claims. But as I said, if there are any writers right now or family estates who are just like, right, well, we've got that window open right now, they may take a chance whilst the public's on their side.
Why not? Why not indeed? I mean, I still think, my story I always think about with something like this is Bill Finger. We already mentioned him, but, he was literally forgotten. Like, literally, name was not even meant. His first time his name was ever seen, like, on something official, DC, was in 2016.
Yeah.
In Batman vs. Superman, which is absolute. And I'm still annoyed that they don't do... They have Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. And I'm like, no, it should be Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Stop with the with.
Because Bill Finger really did most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
I mean, everything you love about Batman, he came up with. He came up with Gotham. He came up with the designs for it.
Gordon, the Joker, Catwoman. Yeah.
So... And yeah, it was crazy that it took that long. Because I think it was like that year DC in comics were doing the Rebirth thing. And I think it was it was either Batman issue 1 or the Batman Rebirth issue. It's that one where, he's trying to land that plane that's crashing. And like, you can actually see like 2 street names as he's like coming down. And like one is like Kane Avenue and Finger Street or Finger Avenue or something like that. And it was like, again, it was one of those things like, it's a nice touch. It's a nice touch, but ugh. Like, why is it taking this long?
Too little, too late sort of thing. But yeah, let's not go into all that. So yeah, like I said, we'll see where this develops. I'm sure throughout the years there'll be more developments and see where it goes. But not looking good for Marvel at all at the minute. So but what might be looking good for Marvel is some comics. So let's go into our weekly pull list.
Well, after X-Men hit at the box office, all the studios started buying up every comic property they could get their dirty little hands on.
So, yeah, we got our pull list this week. I think it's a pretty solid pull list. I'm actually going to start off with the non-Marvel DC pick this week because I know Jake will just be dying to pick this up. It's Berserker issue 5, the amazing Keanu Reeves comic from Boom Studios, who, you know, we've already mentioned how much we love Boom Studios. This series has been great. I mean, if you haven't been picking it up, why? We've told you so many times to pick it up. So yeah, that's my first pick for this week. Let's go to Marvel next. So my first pick for Marvel is Thor issue 17. So it's the epic finale of the Revelations arc. It's been a wild ride. If you haven't been picking up this arc, definitely go back a few issues to read it. But yeah, it's the finale out this week. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. And I've been enjoying Donny Cates on Thor. I'm a big Cates fan. I stan him. I think that's what the kids say nowadays. I stan him, yeah. So definitely be picking that up. Staying with Marvel then. It's a bit of a tough one because they've actually got quite a few decent comics coming out this week. But I'm going to be picking Wolverine issue 16, just because this series has been pretty good. And I know Marvel are heading into some interesting directions with Wolverine coming into next year with the X lives and X deaths of Wolverine. It was probably actually 10 lives and 10 deaths, but you can never be too sure with that. So definitely be picking that up because, as I say, Wolverine is going to be surprisingly front and center in the X universe for the foreseeable future. Going over to DC then, it's another case of just there's so much going on at DC this week, so it's really hard to pick. But I'm actually going to pick first Robin issue 6. So this has been a real fun run for Damian Wayne. I do love Damian Wayne. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings on him, but I love him. And his his series has been absolutely insane, and I've absolutely loved it. It's Joshua Williamson writing, so you know it's going to be quality. And it's Damian Wayne, so, you know, what are you doing? And then my final DC pick is going to be Detective Comics issue 1043. So Fear State has been kicking off. It's been pretty wild. This is tying into that, and this is part one of the arcs that ties into that. And then we've got the second part of the story, which is the What the Fuck is Task Force C finale. So definitely be checking this out. It's been really fun so far. The Fear State arc is promising to be very, very interesting. And also the Task Force C finale is obviously going to be great. So, yeah, listing all those again. So at DC, we've got Detective Comics 1043 and Robin issue 6. At Marvel, we've got Thor issue 17 and Wolverine issue 16. And then over at Boom Studios, we've got Berserker issue 5. So, yeah, there is my comics poll list. Jake, what do you think? Anything you want to add to that? There's a lot coming out this week. So if there's anything...
I'm just looking at mine, actually, to see...
there's so many I feel bad about not mentioning, like Strange Adventures, Department of Truth.
I know we've also got Amazing Spider-Man as well. And,
yeah. Also, I realized I'm very sorry, listeners, that like I'm gonna blame this on the fact that I'm quite ill, and so I glossed over it. But I completely forgot that Inferno issue 1 is out this week as well. So that needs to be checked out because that's basically the culmination of Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run begins here. A lot of shit is going to be going down. We know the Quiet Council of Krakoa have been doing a lot of shit, and I think now finally that's all going to come to a head. So yes, I'm adding Inferno issue 1 to the list because it really should have been in there. Yeah, so as you can see, people, there is actually a whole lot this week, and I probably should have extended the pull list in
Do we have a classic pull for the people this week, Tom?
A classic pull? I could throw in a classic pull. I am going to throw in Justice League International by Keith Giffen. That's what I'm going to throw in. It was the post-crisis launch of Justice League with one of my favorite teams of all time. It includes Guy Gardner, Ice and Fire, Rocket Red, Captain Atom, Martian Manhunter, and so many more. You also get your introduction to Maxwell Lord, who, if you know your DC comics, yeah. So yeah, that's my classic pull. Maybe do you have one as well to throw in, Jake?
Yeah, the Sandman.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good one to throw in, considering today's discussion. So people just pick up The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, all 10 volumes of those. And he's also got some other like spin-off stories as well. The Sandman universe is actually expanding recently. Like a few years ago, they sort of revamped it, and there's a few more stories coming out. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting stuff. So yeah, but check out the original run. Fantastic in many ways possible. Right. So that's it. That's the show. That's the news. That's your comics. Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you, Tom, for being the wonderful co-host that you are. And if people want to continue talking to you and geeking out and seeing what other comics and stuff you're watching, where can they do that?
They can follow me on Twitter at Comic Book Shogun. I've been a bit more active on there recently. So I'll probably start posting a bit more this week about actual comics when I actually start reading them again, now that I'm all settled down after my move. So yeah, that's mainly where you can find me at the moment.
Nice. And you can find me on Twitter as well. And that's at Sweaty Jake, where I'm just talking about Star Wars Visions and the upcoming June and stuff like that. And speaking of which, you can also follow me on Letterboxd at Jake Hartz, where you can get all my film logs and reviews and ratings and stuff like that. I haven't had many chance to go to the cinema in the last couple of weeks, but we got No Time to Die coming out finally. We've obviously got Halloween Kills coming out in June, Last Night in Soho. There's a lot of good films coming out in October. So yeah, catch me on there as well to get all my thoughts on those. And as for the show, you can find and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Capes, Cowls and Masks. And whether you use Anchor, Spotify, or Apple, or Google, whatever, subscribe and follow us on there. And if you're on Apple, leave us a rating and a review, as it all helps us go up in the rankings. But the best thing you can do is keep recommending us and sharing us to all your friends and family. So, thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you all next week. Stay safe. Bye-bye.